Have you ever stepped into someone's home and felt the air change, as if their breath, their silence, their very presence was already touching your skin? Have you ever been looked at in a way that felt like a secret you weren't ready to confess, but couldn't walk away from? Before we dive into this dangerously intimate WLW story of heat, restraint, and forbidden closeness, make sure to subscribe, hit like, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever wanted someone you were never supposed to want? A single droplet slid down the length of Ellen's forearm, catching the late afternoon sun just enough to shimmer, a small, trembling ribbon of light traveling over warm skin. She didn't notice it. She only brushed it away with the back of her knuckles, a slow, distracted gesture she'd repeated all afternoon while lying by the pool. The water bead broke against her touch like something surrendering, and for some reason, the movement lingered in the air longer than it should have. That tiny gesture, unconscious, sensual, almost tender, would become the symbol of this moment. The beginning of something neither woman had been searching for, but both would feel long before they understood. Ellen exhaled, adjusting the strap of her black bikini top, the fabric warm from the sun and clinging to her skin. The day was too hot, dry in that Californian way that made everything feel closer, sharper, more alive. She was only supposed to be killing time before Hannah returned from the store, nothing more. Just a lazy summer afternoon, the kind that melts into the next. But when the doorbell rang, she felt something flicker inside her. A spark without a name. A reaction without logic. She wrapped a towel loosely around her waist, not out of modesty but out of habit, and padded barefoot across the tiles. The sun had left her skin flushed and her breathing slow, open, unguarded. She pulled the door open expecting a delivery or a neighbor. Instead, she found Camille. And the air shifted. Camille hadn't meant to look like temptation incarnate, but intention didn't matter. The heat had forced her into tiny denim shorts and a crop top that clung to her lightly sun-warmed skin. Her hair was pulled up, a few strands sticking to the back of her neck. She looked young, careless, flushed from the walk across the street. But there was nothing careless in the way Ellen's gaze landed on her, or in the way Camille froze under it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Because something in that doorway felt too intimate to break with words. Camille swallowed softly, the movement visible in her throat. Hey. I thought Hannah was home. Her voice cracked on the second word, not from nerves, but something softer, something that came from being suddenly aware of someone else's body. Ellen heard it. Felt it. Her eyes swept over Camille's exposed midriff before she could stop herself, then back up to her face, as if trying not to betray a very specific kind of surprise. Hannah ran to the market, Ellen said, voice lower than usual, carrying an accidental warmth that filled the space between them. But she shouldn't be long. Camille nodded, shifting her weight, tucking the hem of her top as if only now noticing how much skin she was showing. The gesture made her ribs lift, her waist curve, and Ellen's breath caught, not audibly, but enough for her eyes to widen the slightest bit. Do you want to wait inside? It's brutally hot out there. The question sounded innocent. The tone did not. Camille hesitated for half a second too long. She didn't fully understand why stepping into the house felt like stepping into something charged, something humming between them. But the sun was beating on her shoulders, and Ellen's gaze was too steady, too warm, too inviting to refuse. Sure, Camille said softly. She stepped past Ellen, and that was the first spark. Because as she moved through the doorway, the air thinned. Their arms didn't touch, but the heat of their skin nearly collided. Ellen smelled Camille's perfume, something light with a faint sweetness beneath the citrus. Camille felt the warmth radiating off Ellen's sun-soaked body. It wasn't contact, but it was close enough to make both of them forget how to breathe for one suspended heartbeat. Inside, the air conditioning hummed, but it wasn't strong enough to erase the heat between them. Camille paused near the sofa, unsure what to do with her hands, her stance, her racing pulse. Ellen watched her too long, too openly, before catching herself and looking away, tucking a damp lock of hair behind her ear. But her fingers slipped, brushing her own neck, and Camille's eyes followed the movement instinctively. The trail that Droplet had taken earlier flashed through Ellen's mind again. That was the second spark. "Can I get you water?" Ellen asked, though she didn't move. She leaned a shoulder against the wall, posture relaxed but eyes anything but. "Yeah. Sure. Thanks." Camille's voice faltered, her cheeks coloring deeper. As Ellen walked into the kitchen, Camille's gaze dropped against her will, following the slow sway of Ellen's hips, the towel that shifted with each step, the bare skin exposed above it. She looked away quickly, flustered, but the image stuck to her mind, sun-warmed, confident, absolutely beautiful. Ellen noticed the silence behind her, sensed the shift in breathing, felt something warm unfurl in her chest. When she returned with the glass, Camille reached for it, but their fingers brushed. Barely. Softly. Enough to ignite something. Camille's breath caught. Ellen's lips parted without sound. Neither apologized. "You look warm," Ellen said, her voice layered with meaning she didn't intend to reveal. "It's hot outside," Camille replied, but the answer felt thin. Their eyes met, and held. Held too long. Held long enough for the room to change shape around them. A pulse of something electric moved between them, subtle but undeniable. Camille felt it in her stomach, in the back of her neck. Ellen felt it low in her chest, a blooming pressure she hadn't experienced in years. A silence followed, warm, alive, dangerous. Camille looked away first. But only because she had to. Her skin felt too tight. Her heart was beating in strange places. "So," Camille said, trying to latch onto a neutral tone. "Did she just leave?" "Maybe 10 minutes ago," Ellen replied. The truth came with an unspoken addition: "We might have more time than you think." Camille sat, crossing her legs, trying to appear relaxed, but the movement lifted her top slightly, revealing an inch more of her waist. Ellen's eyes dipped there. Not intentionally. Not consciously. But enough for Camille to notice. Her pulse jumped. Her breath stuttered. "That looks like a new top," Ellen said, voice softer, too observant to be casual. Camille's cheeks warmed. "It's just something I threw on." "You look," Ellen caught herself, the sentence slipping into a place she shouldn't go. She changed direction mid-thought. "Summery." But Camille heard the original word. She felt it, even unspoken. A beat passed, slow, molten, vibrating. Then Camille did something she didn't mean to do. She smiled. Not a polite smile. Not a nervous one. A small, involuntary smile that acknowledged the charge between them, even if she didn't dare name it. Ellen noticed. And returned it. The third spark. Outside, the sun dipped slightly, sending a warm streak of gold through the window, touching Camille's shoulder like a spotlight. Ellen followed that glow with her eyes, from shoulder, down her arm, up to the delicate line of her throat. Camille felt it. Not the light, the gaze. She shifted, accidentally brushing her knee against Ellen's thigh as Ellen sat beside her. The contact was fleeting, but it happened. A quiet, intimate brush of skin on skin. "Oh, sorry," Camille whispered, though her voice didn't sound sorry at all. "It's fine," Ellen murmured, her tone lower, heavier, carrying the warmth of someone who hadn't been touched in a very long time. Their knees remained close. Close enough to feel the heat through the air. Close enough that each breath seemed to mix. Camille's chest rose in a slow inhale she didn't want Ellen to notice. Ellen noticed. She always noticed. The silence wrapped around them again, full, slow, hot. Camille finally whispered, "This feels different today." Ellen tilted her head. Different how? Camille opened her mouth, but the words tangled in her throat. Because she didn't know what she meant. Because she did. She looked at Ellen. At her eyes, her mouth, her sun-warmed skin. "It feels like..." Her voice broke. She swallowed. Heat rose across her chest like a confession she couldn't finish. Ellen leaned in without thinking, drawn by the unfinished sentence. Her breath brushed Camille's cheek, warm, slow, devastating. "Like what, Camille?" Camille exhaled shakily. Her lips parted. Her pulse fluttered in her neck. I don't know if I should say it." Ellen's hand rose the tiniest bit, almost touching Camille's knee. "Then maybe," she whispered, her voice like warm fingertips sliding down a spine. "You don't have to say it." "Not yet." And Camille's breath trembled, caught somewhere between fear and want. A suspended heartbeat. A suspended moment. A suspended truth neither dared to voice, not yet. The glass of water sat between them, half forgotten on the coffee table, a thin ring of condensation forming beneath it like a quiet, trembling pulse. Camille kept catching herself looking at that circle, a perfect imprint slowly sinking into the wood, because somehow it felt like a metaphor for what was happening to her. Something warm pressing into her, leaving a mark she wasn't ready to understand. She tried not to think about Ellen's knee brushing hers a few minutes ago, or the way Ellen had leaned in with that soft voice that made her whole chest tighten. Camille sat straighter on the couch, pretending the air hadn't grown thick enough to feel like hands around her waist. But Ellen felt it too. She always did. A faint breeze from the air conditioner fluttered the edge of Camille's top, lifting the fabric just enough for Ellen to notice another inch of skin, the soft dip above Camille's waist, the subtle tension when she inhaled. Ellen looked away quickly, telling herself she was being ridiculous. But the truth was simple, wanting something she shouldn't want felt like remembering how to breathe again after months of barely trying. She cleared her throat, trying to ground herself. "It really is hotter than usual today," she murmured. Camille nodded, brushing a stray hair from her cheek, a gentle, nervous move that made her shoulder lift and fall in a way Ellen couldn't ignore. Their eyes met again. A small exchange. A quick one. But full. "You can sit closer to the fan if you want," Ellen offered, though she didn't move. It was a half invitation, half warning. A test disguised as kindness. "I'm fine here," Camille whispered, though her voice wavered just beneath the surface. The air between them pulsed, not physically, but emotionally, as if both of their bodies had silently agreed to stay in that charged, dangerous middle distance where nothing was happening and yet everything was happening. Then the phone buzzed. Ellen glanced at it. Camille glanced at her. One name on the screen, Hannah, made the entire atmosphere shift for a split second. A tether to reality. A reminder that this moment existed in the shadows of another relationship. Ellen let the phone ring out. Slowly. Purposefully. Camille swallowed. She noticed. She felt it. "Your daughter's calling," she said softly. "I know." Ellen's voice was calm. Too calm. "She's probably asking about dinner. She'll be home soon." Soon. A word that meant, this moment has an expiration. And somehow that made everything hotter. Camille's breath quickened, almost imperceptibly. Ellen heard it, or maybe she felt it, like a shift in the air pressure. "You can put your bag down if you want," Ellen said, watching Camille's shoulders tense. "Make yourself comfortable." Comfortable. There was nothing comfortable about this. Still, Camille set her bag on the floor and adjusted her position. The movement made her lean forward slightly, and when she sat back, her thigh brushed Ellen's again, just a whisper of contact, but enough to stop both their breaths. Neither apologized this time. Microhooks, invisible but powerful, threaded through the air. Silence. Heat. Breathing. Proximity. Camille's chest rose and fell in a rhythm that wasn't steady anymore. Ellen didn't dare move. She didn't dare speak. The light from the window traced along Camille's arms like a quiet revelation, illuminating every place Ellen wanted her eyes not to go. Then Camille shifted again, closer. She didn't mean to, but her desire moved before her mind did. "Sorry," she murmured, though she wasn't. Ellen's lips parted slightly. "You're fine." That was the moment Camille realized Ellen's voice changed when she spoke to her. Lower. Softer. Warmer. Like velvet stretching across a secret. "What were you doing before I got here?" Camille asked, trying to steady the ground beneath her. "Sunbathing." Ellen smiled faintly. Trying to think about anything but work. Or life. A flicker of something painful crossed her eyes, a shadow from the recent divorce, but it didn't cool the room. If anything, it made the heat more personal. "I didn't know," Camille said gently. "It's not something I talk about." Another truth slipped between them. "You're not supposed to be the one I say things to, but I want to." A silence followed, charged and full. Then Ellen stood. Not abruptly, but slowly, deliberately, as if to test what Camille would do. Camille's breath hitched. Ellen turned toward the kitchen, her towel loosening around her waist. She caught it with one hand, fingers pressing into the fabric just above her hip bone. "Can you help me with something for a second?" Ellen asked over her shoulder, voice threaded with warmth she couldn't hide. Camille blinked. "With what?" "The picture. It's on the top shelf. I can't reach it." It wasn't fully a lie. It wasn't fully true. It didn't matter. Because Camille rose instantly. Walking into the kitchen meant stepping into a narrower space, a layout that forced closeness, forced Eleanor's warm body to occupy nearly the same breath of air. When Camille passed behind Ellen, she caught the faint scent of sunscreen and jasmine. The kind of smell that stays on the inside of your memories long after the person leaves. Ellen stepped aside, but not enough. Their shoulders brushed, skin on skin. Slow. Soft. Devastating. Camille inhaled sharply. Ellen felt the sound like a pull. Camille reached for the pitcher above them, stretching her arms upward, her top lifting slightly with the motion. Ellen's eyes traveled, not lasciviously, not greedily, but with quiet inevitability. She was too close not to notice every shift of muscle, every soft line. "You okay?" Camille whispered when she noticed Ellen watching. Ellen stepped closer without meaning to. "I'm fine." The room was small. The distance smaller. The heat inside it almost unbearable. Camille handed her the pitcher, but their hands met and stayed, fingers pressed for a second too long, their palms warming against each other, neither pulling back. That was spark number 4. The kind that didn't feel like an accident anymore. Ellen's breath brushed the side of Camille's cheek. Camille leaned in, barely, instinctively. Their noses were almost aligned. Their mouths dangerously close. Camille whispered, "Ellen." And there it was, her name. Spoken like a secret. Ellen's eyes dropped to Camille's lips for the smallest fraction of a second. Camille saw it. Felt it. Reacted to it. Their breaths mixed, hot, uneven, full of everything they weren't supposed to want. Just a tilt of a chin. Just a lean of a body. Just one reckless heartbeat. And they would be kissing. Camille exhaled, trembling. Ellen softened, drawn in without control. And then, a car door slammed outside. The sound shattered the moment like glass. They weren't touching. But they were. They weren't kissing. But they almost had. They weren't lovers. But something between them had already crossed a line neither of them could pretend not to feel. Camille stepped back first. Too quickly. I should probably. But Ellen caught her wrist. Softly. Carefully. Intentionally. Later, she murmured. Not a command. Not a promise. A possibility. A word that brushed Camille's skin as intimately as a hand. Camille didn't breathe for a full second. Ellen's gaze softened, deepened, held her in place. We'll talk when it's quieter. Quieter. A word that meant, when no one else is here. When it's just us again. When this moment doesn't have to stop. Camille nodded, pulse unsteady, throat tight, eyes shining with something she didn't dare name. The footsteps outside moved away, not toward the house. Just someone passing by. Not Hannah. Not yet. But the moment had already been changed. Broken open. Charged with a new truth. Camille whispered, barely audible, okay. It wasn't agreement. It wasn't refusal. It was something like a vow. The house felt different now, quieter, yes, but also fuller. As if the space itself had absorbed every near touch, every faltering breath, every unspoken want and was now holding it in the walls, the air, the light. Camille could feel it vibrating around her when she followed Ellen back into the living room, their steps soft, slow, and impossibly synchronized. She tried to steady her breathing, but the rhythm broke each time Ellen's shoulder brushed hers, even accidentally. Ellen didn't know where to go either. Not really. She hovered near the edge of the couch, fingers grazing the towel still knotted at her waist. Camille stood a few feet away, pretending to adjust the strap of her top, though her hands weren't steady enough to make it look natural. That trembling alone was enough to pull Ellen's eyes toward her, not in hunger, but in recognition. She knew that feeling. She remembered it vividly. And something inside her warmed at the sight. "Do you want to sit?" Ellen asked. But her voice was too soft, too careful, too aware. Camille nodded. But instead of crossing the room with certainty, she moved slowly, like someone stepping into water that might be too warm. Ellen watched each step, not trying to, not meaning to, but unable to look away from the way Camille's bare legs caught the low sunlight. When Camille sat on the left cushion, Ellen instinctively gravitated to the same side instead of the far one, though she left a small, useless sliver of space between them. Space that neither woman had the slightest intention of honoring. Ellen settled next to her, adjusting the towel at her waist. The fabric slipped slightly as she moved, revealing the soft line of her hip before she caught it again. Camille's breath tightened at the sight, and Ellen sensed it, the way animals sense shifts in weather, instinctive, silent, absolute. "Are you okay?" Ellen asked, but the question carried another meaning. Camille turned her face toward her. "Yeah. I just..." She didn't finish. The sentence dissolved the moment their eyes met. It wasn't a stare. It wasn't even a look. It was something in between, a pause long enough to feel like a door opening, slow enough to feel like consent. A soft, uncontrolled exhale escaped Camille. Ellen's lips parted in response. Their breaths tangled in the warm air between them, a fragile thread pulling them closer without either woman moving. Then Ellen blinked. Slowly, Camille mirrored the movement without thinking. Consent. Silent. Mirrored. Undeniable. Ellen leaned back slightly, grounding herself. "We shouldn't," she began, though her body betrayed her by shifting closer instead of away. "I know," Camille whispered. But neither of them moved. For a few suspended seconds, the world became unbearably small. The couch. The window. Their knees touching, lightly, as if by accident, though neither pulled back. And the air, the thick, warm air that seemed to close around them like a hand pressed to the back of their necks. Ellen's gaze dropped to Camille's mouth again. Just for a moment. Just long enough. Camille's breath hitched visibly. That was the pull. Ellen swallowed, a slow, noticeable sound. That was the hesitation. Camille shifted an inch closer, pretending she was adjusting her posture. That was the approach. Their shoulders aligned, heat radiating in small waves between them. That was the longing. And then, without warning, Camille's fingers brushed the back of Ellen's hand. A featherlight touch. Barely a touch. But it changed everything. Ellen didn't draw back. She didn't even breathe. She just turned her hand slowly, allowing the backs of their fingers to meet again, not by chance this time. A deliberate mirroring. A request. A permission. Then Camille did something she didn't understand until she was already doing it. She slid her fingertips along the side of Ellen's hand, tracing the warm, delicate skin there. Ellen inhaled sharply, quiet, barely audible, but real. Camille looked up at the sound, eyes wide, vulnerable, open. Ellen smiled, but not her usual smile. This one was soft, cautious, trembling at the edges with restraint. "Camille," she whispered, her voice almost breaking on the name. Camille leaned in a little, guided by something deeper than impulse. "Tell me to stop," she said. It wasn't a challenge. It was an offering. Ellen closed her eyes for half a second. "I don't want to." That was when Camille stopped thinking. The space between them collapsed, slowly at first, like a tide pulling in, then all at once, like a breath held too long. Camille's knee pressed more firmly against Ellen's. Ellen lifted her hand, hesitating just before reaching Camille's cheek, letting her fingertips hover a fraction of an inch above the skin. A pause. A question. A breath of permission. Camille nodded, tiny and trembling. Ellen touched her. Not firmly. Not urgently. But with a kind of reverence that made Camille's eyes flutter closed. Warm fingertips brushed the side of Camille's face, sliding back toward her jawline. Camille leaned into the touch unconsciously, her breath shuddering, her lips parting just slightly, an almost kiss all by itself. Their foreheads nearly touched. Their noses brushed, once, then again. A soft, devastating preview of everything neither woman had dared imagine. Camille whispered, "I can't think when you look at me like that." Ellen exhaled a quiet, shaken laugh. "Neither can I." And then it happened. Not fast. Not impulsively. But with the kind of slow, magnetic inevitability that rewrites the body's memory. Their lips met. A brief kiss, impossibly tender, impossibly warm, the kind of kiss that steals breath rather than gives it back. A soft press. A trembling contact. A shared exhale. And then another brush of lips, lighter than the first, but deeper somehow, as if both women needed to memorize the feeling before fear pulled them apart. It lasted seconds. It lasted forever. It changed everything. Camille's hand rose to Ellen's waist without her noticing, her fingertips grazing the warm skin above the towel. Ellen's breath broke audibly at the touch, turning the kiss into something deeper, still gentle, still careful, but undeniably hungry beneath the restraint. And then it stopped. Not because the desire lessened, but because it intensified too quickly. Ellen pulled back first, only an inch, but enough. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Her hand remained on Camille's cheek for a moment longer before she forced herself to lower it. Camille stared at her, breath shaking, eyes wide, lips still parted from the kiss that felt like a secret written on her skin. Camille tried to speak, but her voice collapsed on itself. Ellen shook her head softly. Don't. Not yet. Camille nodded, though her body leaned in instinctively, wanting more, asking for more without words. Ellen saw the movement, felt the pull, felt her own body mirror it, and stopped herself with a quiet, pained inhale. "This is," Ellen whispered, searching for the right word. "Complicated." But her eyes said, "I want it anyway." Her breathing said, "I want more." Her trembling hand said, "If I touch you again, I won't stop." Camille reached for her again, gently, without urgency, fingertips brushing Ellen's knee in a plea for closeness. Ellen closed her eyes. Her breath caught. She almost leaned in again. Almost. And then, a distant sound, keys jingling. A door car shutting. Voices outside. Reality approaching far too quickly. Ellen's entire body tensed. Camille froze. Not Hannah. Not yet. But close enough to make Ellen's pulse spike with fear she hadn't felt in years. "I shouldn't have," Ellen whispered, pulling her hand away completely this time. Camille flinched at the loss of warmth, the loss of contact, the loss of a moment that had felt like falling into something exquisite. "I wanted you to," Camille said, barely audible. Ellen looked at her, eyes soft, wounded, longing. "That's what scares me." A beat. A breath. A heartbreak. Camille lowered her gaze, her fingers curling tightly in her lap, still warm from where they had held Ellen's skin. Ellen stood too quickly, the towel slipping once more. She clutched it, grounding herself, resisting the instinct to reach back for Camille. "We need to slow down," she whispered. But her voice cracked on the word need. The heat between them didn't disappear. It only changed shape, sharper now, heavier, aching. Camille stood too, taking a small step toward her. "Ellen." "Not now," Ellen said, backing up a half step, eyes shining with a desire she couldn't hide and a fear she couldn't control. Camille stopped moving. Ellen stopped breathing. Their want hovered between them, hot, trembling, undeniable, but the kiss had opened something too powerful to stay unspoken. And the world outside the window was getting louder. Ellen turned away first. Camille's heart dropped with her. The consequence wasn't rejection. It wasn't regret. It was the agony of wanting more than they felt allowed to touch. And the silent, devastating truth that one kiss had changed everything. The living room felt colder after the kiss, even though the temperature hadn't changed. The air conditioner hummed on, steady and indifferent, but Camille could still feel the warmth of Ellen's lips on hers, a tiny burn at the center of her mouth that refused to fade. Ellen felt it too. She kept touching her fingers to her own lips, brushing them lightly as if she could erase the memory or make it less potent. But memories don't soften. Not ones like that. They sharpen. Camille tried to speak first. She opened her mouth, then closed it when she realized her voice would betray her. Ellen avoided her eyes, not because she didn't want to meet them, but because she wanted it too much. "I should go," Camille whispered. It was a lie. It tasted like longing and fear pressed together. Ellen nodded, but her breath trembled. "Maybe that's best." Her voice wasn't steady. She didn't sound convinced, she sounded wounded. Torn. Fighting something she knew she was losing to. The towel slipped again, and she held it tighter, as if that flimsy fabric could keep her from unraveling. Camille took a step toward the door, but the distance between them pulsed like a bruise. She paused halfway through the room, turning slightly. "Did you regret it?" she asked quietly. The question sliced through the air. Ellen inhaled sharply. "No," she said too quickly, too honestly. Then, softer, "That's the problem." Camille's chest tightened. She leaned her shoulder against the wall, needing its steadiness because her body had none. "I didn't regret it either," she whispered. Ellen finally looked at her. And the look. The look was heat and apology tangled in one expression. It was fear and hunger at war. "We can't," Ellen began, but her voice broke. She tried again, slower this time. "Camille, you don't know what you're walking into." Camille pushed off the wall, taking one quiet step forward. "Then tell me." Ellen swallowed, her throat tightening. "I'm older. I'm recently divorced. I'm your best friend's mother." The words were supposed to be barriers, but they sounded like confessions. "And you're..." She stopped. Camille waited. "I'm what?" "Young. Beautiful. Dangerous. Everything she shouldn't want." Ellen didn't say any of that. Her breathing answered for her. The silence stretched, thick with things unsaid. Camille took another soft step toward her, a barely there movement, but enough to make Ellen retreat without meaning to, a tiny shift of her heel, a half step backward, fear and desire pulling her in opposite directions. "Don't," Ellen whispered. "Don't what?" Camille's voice trembled, but not from uncertainty, from wanting. Ellen closed her eyes for a moment. "Don't look at me like you want me." Camille's breath caught. She didn't look away. "I do want you." Ellen's hand pressed against the back of the chair beside her, knuckles white. "Camille, please." But the plea wasn't for distance. It was a plea for permission to want what she knew she shouldn't. Camille reached out then, not touching, just extending her hand halfway, letting her fingers hover in the warm space between them. Ellen stared at that outstretched hand as though it were a flame. "Tell me you don't want this," Camille said softly. Ellen's lips parted. Her breath faltered. Her eyes flicked from Camille's hand to her face, then back down again. Her fingers twitched, aching to meet that gesture. "I can't," she whispered. And just like that, the room filled again, thick, hot, unbearable. Camille stepped closer, slow enough to give Ellen every chance to move away. Ellen didn't. She stayed rooted to the floor, breathing unevenly, watching Camille approach like something magnetic she was powerless against. "You're scared," Camille said gently. Ellen nodded. "Yes." "Of me?" Camille asked. "No," Ellen exhaled shakily. "Of how much I want you." Camille's eyes softened, and she reached up, this time toward Ellen's face, but stopped inches away. Her hand hovered in the same spot where Ellen had touched her earlier, mirroring the gesture. Consent. Silence. Permission. Waiting. Ellen leaned in before she realized she was doing it, just the slightest forward motion, a breath's worth of surrender. Camille felt it. Felt the shift in air. Felt the warmth. Felt the pulse under Ellen's skin. But Camille didn't complete the touch. Not yet. Not until Ellen said something she needed to hear. "Say it," Camille whispered. "Say you want me." Ellen's mouth parted again. A soft, ragged sound slipped out, half breath, half confession. She reached up, brushing a fingertip against Camille's wrist. Just one fingertip. Barely a touch. But it sent a tremor through both of them. Camille inhaled sharply. Ellen whispered, "I want you more than I should." Her hand glided higher, from Camille's wrist to her forearm, a slow slide, leaving a trail of heat behind. Camille's eyes fluttered at the contact, her breath catching. Ellen's fingers reached Camille's elbow, then her upper arm, then paused, trembling. That was the reintroduction of the symbolic anchor, the soft glide of touch that had defined their first spark. Only now, it carried memory. Longing. More heat than either of them could endure. The light outside shifted, casting a warm stripe across the room, one that fell directly over Camille's collarbone. Ellen stared. The memory of kissing her moments ago burned through her body. Camille stepped closer. Ellen didn't move. Their bodies were almost touching now, almost, but not quite. The kind of almost that breaks the mind. Camille's voice was barely sound. "Then why are you pulling away?" Ellen looked at the floor. "Because wanting you feels like stepping into something I'm not sure I can handle." "You don't have to handle it alone," Camille whispered. Ellen's head snapped up, eyes wide, vulnerable, startled by the depth in Camille's voice. That closeness, breath to breath, heart to heart, built again. Too fast. Too intense. Too real. Camille leaned in only a couple of inches, and Ellen inhaled sharply, her entire body drawn forward in response. Their noses nearly brushed again. Ellen's lips parted in instinct, memory of the kiss tugging her closer. "Camille," she breathed. "Yes." Camille whispered back. Ellen's hand rose, slow, trembling, until it hovered beside Camille's jaw. The air around her fingers felt electric. Camille's eyes softened, her breath coming faster, silently begging for the touch. But Ellen didn't touch her. She couldn't. Not with her fear clawing at the edges of her desire. Her fingers curled in the air, withdrawing an inch. Camille's heart cracked open. "Why did you stop?" Ellen whispered, "Because if I touch you again, I won't stop." The words landed like heat on exposed skin. Camille exhaled, nearly shaking. "That's not a reason," Camille murmured, stepping even closer, close enough for their foreheads to almost meet. "That's an invitation." Ellen let out a soft, broken sound, a mixture of want and fear. Her breath hit Camille's lips. Camille's breath hit hers. Another almost kiss. A devastating one. One that felt like it could ruin them both, or save them. And then Ellen stepped back. Just one step. But it felt like miles. Camille's body swayed at the loss, her hand falling slowly to her side. "Ellen. Ellen swallowed. "I need time." Camille blinked rapidly, fighting the sting in her chest. "To think? To breathe," Ellen whispered. Camille nodded once, a tiny, fractured motion. Ellen reached for her, instinctively, then froze halfway, fingers trembling in the air, a silent apology she couldn't voice. She let her hand fall. Camille watched it fall, her throat tightening. "I'll go," she said softly. Ellen closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face. "I don't want you to." "Then tell me to stay." Ellen opened her eyes, and the look in them could have undone the world. Desire. Fear. A war she was losing. She stepped forward, one small, helpless step, but stopped before closing the distance. Camille held her breath. Ellen reached out again, slowly, and this time her fingertips grazed Camille's wrist. Camille gasped softly. Ellen's fingers slid up to her palm. And then Ellen pulled away. Completely. Abruptly. Camille flinched. Ellen did too. A tearless ache filled the space between them. "I can't," Ellen whispered. Camille nodded once, eyes shining. "Okay." She turned toward the door, but slowly, painfully slowly, giving Ellen every chance to stop her. Ellen lifted her hand as if to call her back. But she didn't. Her hand hovered in the air, then lowered. Camille hesitated with her hand on the doorknob. She looked back one last time, eyes full of something that could still become a beginning or an ending. Ellen whispered, "Later." It was a promise. It was a fear. It was a vow she didn't know how to keep. Camille whispered back, "Later," and walked out, leaving the door half closed behind her. Not shut. Not open. Just waiting. Camille didn't make it far. She stepped outside, closed the door behind her just enough for it to breathe open again, then froze on the porch, both hands braced on her knees as if she'd run miles instead of a few trembling feet. The air outside was cooler, quieter, but none of it mattered. Her pulse still beat too loudly. Her skin still echoed with every place Ellen had touched, or almost touched. Inside, Ellen stood motionless in the center of the living room, towel still knotted at her waist, lips still tingling with the ghost of Camille's kiss. She covered her mouth with her fingertips, the same way she had brushed that sun-warmed droplet earlier, only now the gesture carried a different kind of heat. Memory. Longing. Fear. Need. She tried to breathe. She failed. Because the silence left behind wasn't empty. It was Camille-shaped. And then, without truly deciding to, Ellen opened the door. Camille turned instantly. Their eyes met in a burst of recognition neither could hide anymore. "You didn't leave," Ellen breathed. Camille straightened slowly. "I tried." They stared at each other for a full second. Then another. And then another, long enough for the tension to coil again, warm and trembling, neither woman brave enough to step forward, but both too undone to step back. Ellen exhaled shakily. "Come inside." It wasn't a command. It wasn't even a suggestion. It was surrender. Camille stepped closer, crossing the threshold as if crossing into something new. When the door closed behind them, the house seemed to shift, as if recognizing they weren't here to deny anything anymore. Ellen didn't touch her at first. She stood a foot away, chest rising and falling too fast, towel loosening at her hip, eyes soft with everything she tried to run from. "I'm sorry," Ellen whispered. "For what?" Camille asked. "For being afraid." Ellen's voice cracked. "For pushing you away when I felt too much." Camille's lips parted, breath trembling. "Did you think I didn't feel it too?" Ellen closed her eyes as if the words physically struck her. When she opened them again, they were wetter, brighter, unguarded. "Come here," she whispered. Not an order. A plea. Camille took one step. Ellen took the other. Their bodies aligned, barely touching, but close enough for heat to gather between them like something alive. Camille's breath brushed Ellen's cheek. Ellen's fingertips hovered near Camille's waist, trembling with the effort not to rush anything. "Tell me to stop if this is wrong," Ellen whispered. Camille shook her head. "It's only wrong if we pretend it didn't happen." That was all the permission Ellen needed. She lifted her hand, slow as moonrise, brushing a knuckle along Camille's jaw. Camille leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering shut, her breath shuddering softly against Ellen's skin. This wasn't like the kiss in topic 3, the trembling, stolen one. This was something deeper. Something chosen. Ellen tilted her forehead to Camille's, soft and warm, letting their breaths synchronize until the tension between them melted into something tender, Camille's hand slid up Ellen's arms, fingertips tracing the faint lines where sunlight had touched her earlier. Heat anchors. Mirrored breath. Consent woven into every second. When Ellen finally kissed her again, it wasn't desperate. It was slow, reverent, full of apology and wanting. A brush. A breath. A soft parting of lips. A pause to feel the moment. Another kiss, deeper but still gentle, still careful, still trembling with truth. Camille's hands found Ellen's waist, warm skin beneath the towel, and Ellen inhaled sharply, not in fear this time, but in recognition. Her fingers slid into Camille's hair, guiding her closer with a tenderness that made Camille's knees weaken. The kiss grew warmer, never explicit, never rushed, just breath to breath, heart to heart, a quiet claiming born from longing denied too long. When their lips finally parted, Ellen rested her forehead against Camille's again, her thumb stroking softly along Camille's cheekbone. "You scare me in all the ways that matter," Ellen whispered. Camille laughed softly, breathlessly. "You make me brave." Those words broke something open. Ellen pulled Camille into her arms, not fully, not urgently, but with a careful, intimate closeness that felt more revealing than anything physical. Camille melted into her, resting her cheek against Ellen's bare shoulder, feeling the slow rise and fall of her breath. They stayed like that for a long moment. A fragile, trembling peace. Then Ellen pulled back slightly, eyes tracing Camille's face with an intensity that made her chest burn. "I don't know what comes next," she said softly. "But I know what I want right now." Camille's voice barely formed. "Tell me." Ellen brushed her lips along Camille's temple, a kiss that felt like a vow. "I want to stop pretending I don't feel alive when you look at me." Camille closed her eyes, breath catching. "Then don't pretend." Ellen kissed her again, not on the mouth this time, but just beneath her ear, where warmth gathered like a secret. Camille's fingers tightened on her waist, drawing in a soft, shaky gasp. The moment was sensual, but tender. Electric, but quiet. Heat without haste. Desire without danger. A surrender of fear. Not a surrender of bodies. When Ellen pulled away, she held Camille's face in both hands. "I want this. I want you. But only if we move slow. Only if we do it right." Camille nodded, eyes shining. "Slow is okay." Ellen smiled, a small, breathless smile that looked like the beginning of something new. The sun dipped lower outside, casting a warm stripe of light across Ellen's shoulder, the same place that Droplet had shimmered in Topic 1. Camille touched that spot now, her fingers tracing the line of light like a promise. A full circle symbol. Transformed from accidental heat to chosen closeness. Ellen's breath hitched at the touch, her eyes softening even more. "See?" Camille whispered. "The light keeps coming back to you." Ellen shook her head gently, pulling Camille closer by the waist. "Maybe it's because you're looking for it." They kissed again, soft, slow, warm, a kiss that tasted like possibility instead of fear. When they parted, Camille whispered, "What happens now?" Ellen took her hand, weaving their fingers together with a deliberateness that made Camille's entire body warm. "We learn each other," Ellen murmured. One slow breath at a time. A silence followed, sweet, hot, trembling with promise. Then Ellen whispered against her lips. "Stay." Not a command. Not a plea. A choice. Camille nodded, her smile small and shaking. "I'm not going anywhere." Their foreheads met again. Their breaths aligned. Warmth gathered. The story reset, not erased, but rewritten with courage. Sometimes desire isn't the fire that burns us. Sometimes it's the warmth that finally lets us breathe. Have you ever wanted someone so deeply that it scared you, until you realized the fear was just proof of how much they mattered? If this story touched you, make sure to subscribe, leave your like, and tell me in the comments. Your voice keeps this garden growing.